Hi, and welcome back to our channel, Pay Down Debt Solutions. Today, I want to talk to you guys about making your income go nuclear, right? So making your income, supercharged. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about what your relationship with money is. And then I'm going to kind of bring it all together and talk to you about how income in, expenses out helps to pay down your balances, all right? So I just wanted to tell you guys that, oh man, we have been hit with the flu, something fierce. My daughter went down. Dan went down. It's just my son and I that seem to have escaped it so far. So we'll see. So any of you out there, it is flu season. Oh my gosh. And just this one's a nasty one. So, take care of yourself. So, make sure you're taking good care of yourself. So I want to talk to you guys about your relationship with money. Okay. So growing up, my parents did well. We were a middle class family, and my dad worked for a car company, and he did really well. He was an executive, and he was a manager. And so I pretty much had whatever I wanted growing up, right? So I didn't ever have the struggle with money when I was younger, or see a struggle with money so much as maybe a lot of you are experiencing and as I experienced as an adult. Okay. So my parents pretty much bought whatever they wanted. If they, had room, or if they could make a payment work for them because, they were taught to make payments, then they did. Growing up, I had a show horse. They bought me a show horse, and I showed for years doing that. And it wasn't until later that I understood some of the struggle and some of the sacrifice that did take, because my mom, for example, picked up a second job to help pay for that. And so had they done and run their expenses just a little differently, had they learned velocity banking, perhaps my mom wouldn't have had to have that second job, to give me the things that I grew up with, right? So everyone is coming to us here and watching our channel from a different standpoint. We all have had different experiences growing up, but what your relationship with money now, if you look back and look back on your childhood, you may see connections where you do things now because of maybe what you were taught when you were younger. Money was like paper clips to me, right? And I even talked about that in the interview the other day. Even as a branch manager, that money, it didn't have any real value to me. It was like paper clips because I dealt with it every single day. Okay. And so when we talk about interest, or interest that you will pay, it's not real. It's paper clips to you because you haven't experienced it. You haven't felt it yet, but you will feel it. Trust me on that. You will feel it. And so this is where I want you guys to really start thinking about your money, really thinking about the dollars and cents and the interest that will be lost to you if you continue to run in a traditional banking way, a traditional banking structure. So this is why today I think is really important to kind of go over and explain how you can take your income, how my mother could have taken her income and supercharged it using lines of credit. Okay. So had she done that, she might not have had to have, work two jobs to help, pay for everything. All right. And they were never like really strapped ever. Okay. They did well, but she picked that up. So we had extra money, but maybe she wouldn't have had to. Okay. And maybe some of you won't have to go get another job. Maybe you're working a second job right now, and you learn just by reorganizing your money, you may not have to do that. And so spend more time with your family. These are the people that matter to you. That man laying in that bed in the other room feeling not so good today, I feel for him. He matters. My daughter matters. I want her to be able to go to her tournament on Sunday, and we'll see, because she's, under the weather, but she's getting better. So we'll check it out. Anyway, my point is, your family matters. Take care of your family. Stop killing yourself over your finances if you don't have to, and if you learn a different way. So that was my relationship with money growing up, right? So it was just, I always had everything I needed. And then when I got older and we, got ourselves strapped in ways where we felt payment poor, that was new territory for me. I'd never been there before. So I didn't really understand it, even though I was in the financial world, right? So I was in the financial world, bank. I was a banker. I was a branch manager. I didn't know how to run my money this way. We didn't know how to do what we know how to do now. And it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference. So how do you supercharge your income? How do you do that? Okay, that's the question. You can and you will if you run it through velocity banking using the pay down way. All right. So you can make your income more impactful on your finances by changing where you put it. Okay. So I did a funny graphic for you, and I did it because I'm trying to do things to like engage your brain in different ways, right? Because I'm a very pictorial learner. Dan over there, he's monies, he's numbers, he can write it down and it all makes sense to him, but not so much for me. I like the picture, okay? So here we have a debt destroyer here, and it is this fish, right? And this fish is eating the money, okay? So it's sort of like a bank in a way. So you've got this fish, he's coming along and he's eating the money, and he has income inside of him, right? So the income is in, therefore he's able to take on more debt, and he's able to eat it faster and eat more of it, okay? And then over here, we have the traditional banking structure. Okay. So we have this big fish here, right? This big guy. And he's the debt destroyer, right? But he's running things traditionally. So he's like a bank. So his debt destroyer is a bank. It's not really the debt destroyer that I teach, right? Which is a line of credit. And so he's trying to eat this money here. Okay. And his income is outside. All right. The income is outside of the bank account, and it's not really helping out so much. Yeah, he's nibbling away and he's making it here, right? But he's not doing it quite as fast or eating quite as much as the smaller guy who's using the income in, right? The income inside as that debt destroyer. So this is a debt destroyer or not using the income correctly, okay? So debt grows through interest paid out by you, okay? So your debt can actually grow because you're paying more interest over time. But with this guy here, he's paying way less interest over time because he's eating it faster, okay? He's eating it faster because all that income is coming in, dropping the interest charges, so he's eating it faster, all right? Now, how does then income in, expenses out work to pay down your debt balances? Well, to understand that, first let's understand how credit card companies look at your payment, okay? Now, I've talked to you before and I've said that typically a credit card payment, okay, your minimum payment, credit cards are going to calculate it for you two different ways. And one of them is going to be how your card works, okay? So it might be that you are charged your interest on the total balance, okay? Your interest on the total balance, then you have to divide by 12, right, to get the 1 month charge that you'll make. So you're charged, let's say 24%, okay? But they're also going to charge you if it's interest plus 1%, they're going to charge you on top of that monthly interest, okay, of that 24%, they're going to charge you 1% of your outstanding balance, or your total balance, okay? So you will have to pay that amount. So that amount plus the interest charge from that credit card divided by 12 months, okay? And so that would be your payment. Now, that payment there is going to be a little bit more. You're going to pay more there, and therefore work down your balances a little bit faster if it's interest plus 1%. Now, some credit card companies then will charge you 2%, okay, which is less. It's going to be a lot less. So they'll charge you 2% overall, all right? And out of that, you're still going to have to pay your interest. So when we say that, sometimes it's, 4 to 5 years payoff, it's usually the interest plus 1%. But when you see interest minimum payments, I'm talking minimum payments here. When you see minimum payments, 2%, right? That's when you're seeing 10, 12, 15, 18 years because you're paying a much less amount over time. Now, so that's how it's calculated, okay? So if a credit card company, what the credit card company wants to know is if you can pay them. And that is what that minimum payment represents, right? Is if you can pay them. And so they're going to make sure that you pay them every single month so that they're getting their interest, okay? Now, your minimum payment is a good faith payment, okay? Or it's a promise to pay them back. So that's why you're paying a minimum payment. That's why you have to pay some kind of a payment to them to see that you're working your balance down. Now, what do you think they care about, right? So do you think credit card issuers care if you pay them back? Think about that. Do you think they really care? You can make your payment for 30, 50, 80, 90, whatever, however long you live. You can make those payments for years and they don't care, because as long as they're getting their interest from you and you continue to pay that interest, you can have that balance for as long as you want. They don't really care. So think about it. They are earning, right? They're making their living on the interest that they're charging you. And sure, they want you to make that monthly payment, even if you can't pay back the total dollar amount, which obviously you can't, or you would pay it off monthly, right? They don't care so long as they're getting their interest, all right? That's business, right? This is life. It's just business. I mean, we can't really get mad at them for it, right? It's business, okay? So when you understand the way they think about that, then when we come over here and we look at it a little bit different, okay? And let's look at the interest traditionally, okay? So if you were to have your interest plus the 1%, and that's my example here, all right? So we have a $12,000 balance. And this side represents the interest that we're paying. Now, this side is representing the minimum payment that you have to make, right? That's going towards your balances. So this is the minimum payment. I should say balance here. Let me find my black marker. Sorry. Okay, so this is your minimum payment, and this is the balance side, okay? So this is what you're paying, and that's what's knocking down your balance. All right, so if we look at month one here, okay? Month one, we are paying $240 in interest, and we're paying towards our balance $120 on $12,000, month one. So we come into month two. Now we are paying a little bit less. We're paying $238 in interest, and we are paying $119, okay, to our minimum payment for our balance, right? And these are going down because our payment is going down, right? Our payment's going down. And remember, lines of credit are figured on your average daily balance. So everything's going to be a little bit less as you pay it down, all right? Not the same way with amortizations. Remember, when you have an amortized schedule, such as a loan, you are going to pay more interest up front. Yes, you're doing that here too. You're paying more interest up front, but your balance then, the payback for your balance then increases. Here, everything kind of, is going to go down, all right, at the same time. Okay, so month two, we have $238 that we're paying this card in interest. Remember, we're just making our minimum payments. And then we're paying $119 towards our balance, okay? So that part of the minimum payment is going towards our balance, okay? So month three, we've got $235 now that we're charged in interest, and we have $117 now that is going towards paying back our balance, okay, of $12,000. So on and so forth. So now we have $232 for month four, and we're paying back $115 for our balance. So as you can see, you're paying minute amounts, right? Teeny tiny amounts towards your minimum, your balance, right? Doing this minimum payment requirement. You're paying a little bit back on your balance, and you're paying a whole lot more in interest. And that's why the banks love you, right? That's why they love you, because you're paying, and this is at a 24%. So I'm doing this example today at a 24% interest rate, okay? So let's say it's 24% interest rate. So in a matter of 6 months now, you have paid $1,175, so $1,175 towards interest for this card, and you have only paid $585 towards your balance. Blah. Makes you sick, doesn't it? I mean, that's rough. That's a high interest rate, so it's rough, okay? And it would take you, if you let this run out, if you let this go, okay, if you let it go to term, let's say, and although it's not a term loan, if you were to run it on this schedule per se, okay, you were to run it this way, it's going to take you 4 years, 8 months, and you are going to pay $7,000. Sorry, Dan hates it when I forget my commas, so we'll make one in there for him. All right, so $7,972 in interest is what you're going to pay. That's a heck of a lot of money for a $12,000 balance, isn't it? So how then does velocity banking work? How then does income in make it so that you're paying it off faster? Okay, how? Well, so let's go into this scenario. Let's look at my scenario. Again, I'm using the same example here. It's a hypothetical. I'm running hypotheticals for you, but I think it's a pretty powerful example. So if I take my scenario and we say this person has an income of $3,000, all right? Income $3,000. And their total expenses is $3,000, which means zero cash flow. We got nothing, right? At the end of the day, we're in a big world of hurt because we've got nothing else. We've got nothing extra. All right. But let's say they want to pay their card down. $12,000, hefty card. They know they're in debt and they want to pay it down. What are their options? This taking 4 years, almost 5 years to get done? Well, yeah, if they pay it on a minimum balance, right? If they pay the minimum, that's what they're going to pay. So in our scenario here, we've got rent for $1,000. So we're going to hold that out. Remember, with credit cards, and we're working this through a credit card, that is what we're working with. $12,000 credit card, we know we have to hold out our non-chargeables. Rent is a non-chargeable, have to hold that out. So let's say, and this is a true example here, and that's something else that I would love to show you guys. If you go to calculator.net, all right, and I actually did it on my phone, but I'm using that to record, so I can't show you. But if you go to calculator.net and you put in 12,000 and you put in 24%, you're going to get this schedule. If you click the little blue hyperlink that says 1% interest plus 1%. Okay. So this is exactly what you're going to get. Okay. So these numbers here. Okay. So this is what you're going to get. And so 360 is then our payment. All right. That is our payment that we have to make. So if we then have our chargeable expenses, okay, of 1640, because why is that? Because we're holding out a rent, right? We have to take care of rent, and this is non-chargeable, so we can't charge the 360 through our card. So that is a chargeable expense, all right, or non-chargeable expense, sorry. So we know our chargeable expenses are $1,640. All right, that is what we can run through our card. So all the other incidentals that this person has, gas, groceries, haircuts, I don't know, what do you guys do? Golf, I don't know, whatever your stuff is, right? All right, hunting supplies, I don't know, whatever. All right, so anyway, so then the chargeable expenses are $1,640, all right? The available income this person has, remember, we have to hold out of our income $1,000 because that rent has to be paid through our checking account. We can't run that through this card, all right? Can't run it through the card. So here's what happens, all right? Now, we know that our chargeables here are $1,640 because this is still a non-chargeable that has to be held out. When we run Velocity Banking and we put all of our income in, every last bit of it, our income goes in, right? This was something that we would have had to hold out of our check, or we would have had to hold this out of our income, all right? But we don't anymore because all of our income is going into that card, satisfying that payment. So the only thing we're paying is the interest now. The rest of that quote unquote payment is now cash flow to work that card down. So it becomes more than the interest we're paying over here, right? Because we're dropping our balance faster. Remember, credit cards are figured, all lines of credit are figured on an average daily balance. So as that interest comes down quickly, because our balances are coming down quickly, the interest drops. So more of that payment then becomes cash flow, all right? So we have 12,000 we start with, and geez, oh Pete, I forgot my comma. So I'm going to put that in there. So we've got $12,000 minus our income, which is 2,000. Okay, there's our income because we have to hold out our rent. Drops our balance to 10,000. Okay, but our expenses have to go back on that card. Our interest has to go back on that card. And I will do this one more time for you. How do we calculate the interest? Well, this card is at 24%. We take our high balance for the month. We take our low balance for the month. We add them together. We then divide by 2. All right, we take that number and we multiply it by, okay, if this is 24%, so 24% now becomes a decimal, 0.24. We multiply the average by 0.24. That gives us a year's worth of interest. We don't need a year's worth of interest now, do we? Because we're hammering this down. We need 1 month. So we take it. And it is $220. All right. You take your high, you take your low, add them together, get your average, multiply by 0.24, then you divide it by 12, and you get 1 month of interest, which is what this represents here, 220. Now, why is it 220 versus 240? Why is that? Because your income went in and dropped your balance. So when the income drops the balance like that quickly, you then owe less interest. So more goes back to pay down your debts. I'm hoping you're catching here. I'm hoping you're picking up what I'm putting down, right? I hope you get it. So now we're paying for that month. All right. After it's all said and done, we're at $11,860. Now, look at the balance here. $11,860 is certainly less than the traditional payment here, right? $11,880. All right. So we've saved ourselves a little bit right there. Now we're going to keep running this. So if we take and look at our next, so 11,680, so 11,680 minus 2,000 drops our balance to 9,860. Then we have to do the high plus the low. We add them together. We get our average, multiply by 0.24, divide it by 12, and we get our interest again, 217, right? So 217 is now the interest charges, and it is less than the 238. So again, more cash flow, right? More cash flow to work this baby down. So we keep going, income in, holding out our rent, right? And we have to hold this out, okay? Or, well, we don't anymore because it's back as cash flow. So we have to hold out our rent for our income. So that's where we get the 2,000. So again, we drop to 97.17 plus our expenses, plus our interest, and so on and so forth. And we work it down, right? We work this down. Now, so what difference did it make? If I paid at over 4 years and 8 months, and if I ran this the traditional way, making my minimum payments, so $7,972. Now remember, she had no cash flow. She could not hammer this down, or he or whoever, sorry. He or she could not hammer this down because there was no cash flow, okay? So no cash flow, remember that. So what happens? Well, whoa, here's what happens. Did you believe that? I scared myself. All right, so here's what happens. 3.7 years versus the 4 years and 8 months, all right? 3.7 years. We've paid $6,101 in interest versus $79.72 in interest. So we've saved a year, and we have saved almost $2,000 by running it the Velocity way with no cash flow. See the power here? Now, why do I talk about lines of credit versus credit cards? Now, we know we can all do this with credit cards. You guys know that Dan and I hammered out our debt using credit cards until we realized we had a line of credit available to us, okay, which was our home equity. But we hammered out for like over a year just doing it with credit cards. So you can do that. So why do I talk about getting a line of credit, a personal line of credit, or home equity line of credit? Here's why. Now, I'm going to run an apples to apples example for you. So here's our PLOC, right? A personal line of credit at a 24% interest rate, just like this is. We have a $12,000 balance, of course, because that's what we started with. Now, our income is $3,000, right? But we can use every single cent of it. We can use all of it because this rent can be paid through a personal line of credit. Remember what happens. So when you're using a line of credit, all of your income is going into that line of credit. Okay, so you're paying it down that line of credit immediately. And then all of your expenses are coming out of that checking account, and that line of credit is sweeping into the checking account, eating away those bills for you, okay? But it's all coming from that line of credit, all right? So it's all coming from that line of credit. So it works that way where it sweeps it over. Now remember, some of you don't have a sweep like that, so you just have to manually move the money. And if it's connected in your online banking, who cares? It's not a big deal, okay? So now we're using all of our income, okay? Drops our balance to $9,000. Our expenses are $2,640, and why is that? Well, our chargeable expenses now, we know we don't have to worry about holding the rent out. So the only thing we're worried about is our $360, right? But that comes back to us, okay? So this comes back to us. So our total expenses were $3 minus the $360, but it came back as, cash flow basically, because we could use it instead of holding all of that out. So $2,640 is our new expenses. Now, because we have dropped our balance, right, by an extra $1,000, look at this. Our interest drops to $210, where we started at $220 here, okay? Our balance is $11,850 now. And again, we're going to do it all over again. Remember, we're multiplying by the 0.24 because that's the interest rate. So again, we take our high balance, we take our low balance, we add them together, we divide by 2. We then multiply by 0.24, divide that by 12. That's how we're getting the 210, okay? So same thing, right? Now, if we continue to run this, okay, see how it's dropping, 88.50 here versus, let's see, that's the second, so versus 98.60, okay, so you can see it drop faster because of that extra $1,000 that we're able to use to help drop our interest, all right? So what happens then when you use the personal line of credit? And we're trying to do this all with apples to apples, right? As much as we can. So it drops your interest faster using all of your income, all right? So what happens? Well, this is what happens. It takes you 3.3 years using a line of credit with all of your income available to you to use. You pay $5,309 versus $6,101, still a good savings, right? But over this here, right, the $79.72, check this out. You're saving an extra almost $1,000, $792 or almost $800, okay, over doing it this way. So you're still saving more. So now you see why the lines of credit, personal line of credit, home equity line of credit, first lien home equity, using those debt destroyers are so much more impactful because you're using every bit of your income to do it. Now, you can do it through a credit card. So if you can't get a line of credit at this point in time, no worries, right? Not a big deal because running the maxed card strategy, if you run your finances this way with your credit card and you make your micro payments, you're going to jack up your credit score, right? Your credit score is going to go up on you, and you should be able to, at that point, get yourself a line of credit so that you can work down any other debt that you have faster. So, income in. Always do income in. Run it the velocity banking way. Run it the pay down way, where you organize all your bills first, okay? You organize. You identify that debt destroyer, that debt weapon, and your strategy. And number 3, then, you hammer out your plan. You're implementing that plan. This is why I teach this, you guys, because it is incredible. Had a wonderful email yesterday from a woman who said, she wanted to be part of the newsletter, right? So again, you guys, if you want to be added to our newsletter that we're going to start doing quarterly, please email me, put newsletter in the subject line, and I will gather those off to the side, and I will then send you guys the newsletter quarterly that I plan on doing. I'll have success stories like hers, okay, which I'll get ready to finish that in a second. I'll have success stories in there. I'll have anything going on in the velocity banking environment that impacts you, like good credit cards out there or credit card offers that are out there, some interesting things like that. And I'll continue to talk about strategies. So I will send out a newsletter like that. But anyway, back to this woman. She said to me, she said, that she wanted to be part of the newsletter. She said she's so excited because she was able to get a credit card for $20,000. She was able to get it for for 0% for 12 months, 0 balance fee charged. Now, isn't that cool? So to bring over those balances, they're not charging her anything. She's not going to have to pay for those convenience checks at all. So that is really cool. So hopefully she'll give me the name of that card so I can share it with you. It'll be things like that in the newsletter. So I wanted to say, hey, V, I'm so excited for you, and I'm trying to keep anonymity here. So, be brave, and I know you're brave, and I know you said you were scared, but you were pulling balances over. You guys, you don't have anything to be afraid of. Work the strategy. You can see it plain as day. It works. Have an incredible day, and hopefully you'll see the big guy. He has a really good student scenario to run for you, and I'm excited for you guys to see that, so I want to let him do it, but hopefully he'll feel better in a couple days. Have a good day. Thank you so much.